Today I am doing my top 5 historical romance authors. I pick up a book by any of these authors and I think it's definitely going to be at least mostly amazing. Okay, number 1, Lisa Kleypas. She is a fantastic author, but she also has a very fun and adventuresome style to most of her stories, and she's a little bit steamy, but it's not really over the top. She's got like very classical romantic ideals, and she writes the Wallflower series. Like, it has some challenging characters in it, so I like that. She's got a very good grasp on creating the environment that you're going to be spending the duration of the book in, which I really, really appreciate from a historical romance author, because I'm not picking up the book necessarily to just read smutty stories. I'm kind of there's not that much out there that has the element of excitement that a lot of historical romance authors can infuse into their stories. So I appreciate that. I think that her message is always kind of really good. You know, mostly in books like this, they're not trying to push any sort of moral to the story necessarily. So I think that might be the one thing that people find issue with, the fact that historical romances sometimes don't carry very much weight. But I think Lisa Kleypas kind of finds a happy medium between that element of romantic interest and fluff and sometimes real issues. So she's not my number 1 favorite author, but I read her entire Wallflower series. It's really fun. She challenges some ideas of feminism. I don't think that I read a heroine by her that's like whiny. I think that there's more emphasis sort of on like creating a fun and exciting and interesting background to our heroes and heroines, and what brings them together is often a really fun situation. Number 2 is Karen Marie Moning. Now, Karen Marie Moning has her entire like Fever Fae series that she writes, and that's different. But this is her Highlander series that I'm talking about. As a historical romance author, it's all fun. It's literally laugh out loud to me. She has one story that she writes about a Scottish berserker, and he has like the call of the berserker comes to him, and he just like turns into a human monster and like can tear an entire town apart, and he like sees red and loses it, but he like has this entire band of cronies and dudes that are in this group of Highlander like heroes, and we kind of follow them along as they find their like ladies. And she's got really steamy romance. Her romance is very detailed, and so it's kind of fun to read them, but you don't get tired of the story. Front to back, you can read the whole thing and it stays really exciting, and I love that. And also she has time, so some of the stories are purely historical. Some of the contemporary time travel stories are peppered in through the shared characters, and the stories are following modern women who travel back in time, and the Highlanders who have traveled forward in time through a mechanism that they have that's like port key that they can use to get back and forth in time. So there's a couple of different elements that make it really interesting and help you get through an entire series of romance novels, which is kind of like unfounded. It's kind of hard to find a lot of authors that keep you that interested in the background of the story. Number 3, Tessa Dare. Tessa Dare is hilarious. She's so funny. And she's also got a very fluffy, peachy keen kind of intelligent romance. When a Scot Ties the Knot is my favorite Tessa Dare book, and it's about this young woman who basically does not want to get engaged, doesn't want to get married, and it's coming time. She's getting a little bit older, and she starts writing, like penning letters to an imaginary man, and it turns out that this is a real captain in an army, and he's got like all these men, and he like comes and finds her and like surprises her, and she's like, holy shit, like I don't want to marry you, dude, you're like you're a beast. And he's like, spends the time basically throughout the book getting her to realize he's not a beast. But there's a really fun element that she gets into science experiments, and so she's like following these little lobsters, and it gets really fun. It's really interesting. The stories usually have something to do with a heroine that is involved in some other way outside of the hero. So she's got the Spinster Cove series, and she's got the Castles Ever After series. And then she's got some like standalones. I don't know if they're all part of it. I own a few of her books, but I just love her sort of like really fun, light, airy approach to romance. I think it's really great. Everybody that reads Tessa Dare loves Tessa Dare. Elizabeth Hoyt is number 3. Now, I have been reading Elizabeth Hoyt since about 2015, I think, and just sprinkling her series throughout the years, but she has such an interesting dynamic to her story. There's a little sub-story within the whole story. So she has a little background fairy tale, and then she's got the whole story, then they both kind of relate or intertwine. She has the Harlequin Motley hero, the Ghost of St. Giles. So he or she, it keeps changing. So throughout the series, it's a mystery to everybody who this is, but you know who it is, and he's like gathering up all these villains and killing them, basically. She's got some really good like fight and violence scenes in her romance, which is kind of unique. So it's definitely like heavier, and it's a little bit like taking me out of my comfort zone for some of her romance scenes. They're a little bit like gritty, but she's just really good at an environment that's really clear and interesting, and you get to actually go in and spend time in it. She's got pirates, she's got all the drama and all the fun, and all of her characters are really interesting, so I definitely recommend her. Out of all of the ones that I've said, even though I haven't done them in order, she's probably my favorite. You can tell through her writing that she's a very, very smart lady, and I appreciate that in romance. I always love a story that makes me think a little bit. Number 5 is Kathleen Woodiwiss. She is like the godmother of historical romance. She is passed away, but her writing is so good. She writes The Wolf and the Dove. She wrote Everlasting. She wrote Shanna. They're just really in-depth, detailed books, and they have like steamy, like it's almost like sometimes you've got a romance author who has the story supporting the romance, and you find that a lot in contemporary romance styles. The story is just there to support the sex scenes, where Kathleen Woodiwiss has this way of writing where they just are kind of sprinkled throughout. They're very, very good. They're not like over graphic. Express a certain level of intimacy, which is really nice. She has a wild imagination for how she portrays the characters, and it's a little bit closer to reality. All these nice guy routine romances that act like, you know, if a Scottish laird is supposed to be brutish, she will not have him really soften. The heroine just has to come around to loving him anyway. It's kind of like that. So like the people in the stories don't change because of love. I think if I was going to base any main theme throughout her stories, is that's kind of what she does. When she develops a character, she adheres to that character's description from start to finish. And I like changeling stories. I like where people start out maybe rough and end up kind or more kind, but it's not as realistic. So she has a very gritty writing style. And The Wolf and the Dove in particular, it's a very long book, and it covers a lot about just like the concept of old world feminine vulnerability and what it really means to stake a claim in your own life. She has some really good war scenes, and the pictures that she paints of like the blood and guts and gore and stuff, it's very true to what history tells us. Kathleen Woodiwiss is unquestionably at the top of the list of authors that you should give a try if you want to try out historical romance, but she's also, I would not say that Kathleen Woodiwiss is a starter romance novelist. Her novels are chunky. They're quite long, they're really in depth, but definitely rewarding. You don't forget the stories. That wraps up my top 5 historical romance authors. I'm trying to start doing a lot more recording and getting some of that my own perspective out there, because, you know, we all have something to offer. So thank you so much. Bye.